It was at the city of Antioch in northern Syria that the Gentile believers were first called Christians, meaning Christ's people. And it was at worship in the same church in Antioch that the Holy Spirit said to the congregation, "Set aside Paul and Barnabas for the special work that I have for them." And so it was in the spring of AD 47 that, led by the Spirit and commissioned by the church, Paul and Barnabas set off on the first missionary journey. By AD 50, 3 years on, Paul, now accompanied by Silas and Timothy, are partway through the second missionary journey. And the Holy Spirit seems to be restricting where they should go next. But the matter is resolved when, during his night's sleep, Paul has a vision of a man from northern Europe, northern Greece in fact, who pleads with Paul and his missionary team to come over and help them. The next day, the team set out. They sail across for Europe. And they move on to the nearest city, which is Philippi. And the Holy Spirit now organizes a sequence of divine appointments. Paul first meets Lydia. She's a successful businesswoman, and she becomes a believer. And a house provides a base for the missionary team. And eventually, it provides a home for the house church. Next day, Paul casts out the controlling spirit that possesses a slave girl. And this leads to the team's imprisonment. A dramatic earthquake leads to the conversion of the jailer's family. And the next day, the very next day, the missionary team move on to Thessalonica. Oh, I have trouble with that word. Too many S's. So the fledgling church at Philippi consists of 1, an astute businesswoman, 2, a slave girl whose status is really that of a non-person, and a jailer, probably a retired, long-serving Roman soldier, and his family. A mixed bunch, don't you think? True, they represent 3 strands of Philippian society, but what chance do you give them of ever forming, let alone growing, flourishing, and even surviving as a church? But hang on, these few people were the Holy Spirit's choice. When Jesus had to choose his 12 disciples, he spent the previous night in prayer to God. And what a mixed bunch of disciples was the result. So I'm looking around, looking at us, and thinking, what a mixed bunch we are, to be sure. But divinely chosen, and just right for showing what God can accomplish. Today we turn the pages of the Bible to the book of Philippians and read the first part of chapter 1. It's a passage that speaks about the beauty of partnership in the gospel, the joys and the thanksgiving that spring from such fellowship, and the transforming power of grace in partnership. Paul is placed under house arrest in Rome around AD 60 to 62. That's when he writes this letter to the Philippians. So it appears that for 10 years at least, the Philippian church has existed and flourished and has been working in partnership with Paul for the gospel. Paul's letter is full of joy. Just to think of them, the Philippians, causes Paul to rejoice. Clearly, the church at Philippi has followed the example that Paul had initially set them. They had spread the gospel, and their church had grown numerically, practically. Paul declares that they have been his partner in the gospel from the moment they formed a church. It's a work which Paul is confident that they will always continue. Paul's confidence wasn't in their abilities or their efforts, it was in God's faithfulness. He knew that the same God who had started his transformation work in their lives would carry it on to completion. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that partnership is more than membership. And as an analogy, another struggling word, think about joining a gym, taking up gym membership, as opposed to joining a sports club. I'm thinking, ladies, you might join a netball club. I know of a reader, for example, who participated in very active games every week into her 50s. But there are senior teams. The fellows can join a grassroots football club. If you're young, you can play, well, you first of all have to do the training each week, and then you're allowed to play at the weekend in a competitive game, no matter what the weather, snow, rain, wind, even sunshine. If you're a gym member, you use the gym facilities for your personal benefit. But once you join that club, sports club, and get enlisted into a team, you make an investment. You now have a shared goal, and you actively participate in the success of the whole team and the club. Too often we treat church like gym membership. We come for what we can get out of it. Good sermon, uplifting music, kids program, so on. But God has called us for something far greater, to be a team player. The Philippian church had always supported Paul. Hearing that he was in prison, they had sent Epaphroditus. He, I suspect, was an elder by now in the Philippian church, and he was sent to be Paul's personal helper, to help in any respect whatsoever. You see, the Philippians did not distance themselves from Paul when he was imprisoned. They didn't abandon him because of his chains, nor dissociate themselves from the stigma of his suffering. Instead, they identified with him, stood by him, and shared in the challenges, difficulties of ministry. And so the Apostle Paul, writing from prison, finds his joy not in what the Philippians did for him, but what they did with him in their partnership in the gospel. And the Philippian church, therefore, gives us a great model for a church, not as a collection of individuals, but as a dynamic partnership. Partnership is not just coffee and chat. The word partner refers to a number of individuals who have a shared investment in a joint venture. It implies that they are all stakeholders in a common enterprise. They share in the work, the risks, and the rewards. For Paul and the Philippian church, the common enterprise is the gospel. What unites them is their shared mission. the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so for us, our partnership is not based on shared hobbies or politics or social status. It is built upon the world's most important mission, spreading the good news of salvation. In the business world, only some employees get to be partners. In the business world, most customers do not become partners. In the Church of Christ, all are invited to be partners. All of which suggests some probing questions. The first of which is, do you see yourself as a consumer of church services or a contributor to its mission? A partner looks for ways to invest their time and their talents and their treasures into the shared goal of advancing the gospel in their community and beyond. And the second question is, what's the duration of your partnership? Is it continuous? Is it constant? The key phrase that Paul uses to describe the partnership of the Philippian church is from the first day until now. Their partnership was not a one-time donation. It wasn't a short-lived burst of enthusiasm. It was a steadfast, long-term commitment, a long journey in the same direction. So understand, we are invited to be partners with God. He's not looking for members, he's looking for partners. And he invites us into a deep, shared participation in his gospel mission. It's not a one-time event, but a consistent, faithful journey. So how to begin? Well, Hudson Taylor was a pioneering missionary in China, and he suggested that our strategy should be find out what God is doing and join in. So what is St. John's doing? Well, hopefully you were here last week, in which case you heard exactly what the mission of St. John's is to be. Perhaps you weren't, so I'll fill you in. Basically, it seems to me, St. John's will be moving out, doing everything, everywhere, all at once, starting now. Well, that's my take on it. And all you need to do is to look out for the sign-up sheets and get involved. It's as simple as that. So, having started to think about Hudson Taylor, let me tell you a few more comments that he made on partnership with God. He found that there were 3 stages to any and every great work of God. Stage 1 is impossible, quite impossible. Stage 2 is difficult, extremely difficult. Stage 3 is done. And in order to encourage us, he said, depend upon it, God's work done in God's way will never lack God's supply. And finally, he reminded us that Christ is either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all.